Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David T. Kramer, and today we want to talk just a little bit about this guy right here. That guy right there. His name is David Rosenhan. But before we do that, we've got to cover a couple of terms here. First term, most importantly, is the word cool. You have to understand that I grew up in the 1960s, and we used the word cool. It's a slang term that means excellent, first rate. For example, hey, wow, that guy's got a cool sports car. The other word that we need to talk about just a minute is sociology. And, if you pick up a psychology textbook, every psychology textbook has the same definition of psychology. Not the case with sociology. I'm not sure that sociology has even defined itself yet. But the best definition, in my opinion, is to say that sociology is the systematic, or we might say scientific study of social interaction and social organization. And of course, social refers to individuals, human beings who are associating with each other. All right, so David Rosenhan. Not really a sociologist. He's actually a psychologist and also a scholar in the field of law. But he did a study that combined participant observation. I'm not used to this pen here. It's got a little button, and sometimes when I accidentally get on that button, it does wild and crazy things. But he combined participant observation, and we might also call this a field experiment. He kind of combined a field experiment with participant observation. And this is really something that a lot of sociologists like to use, especially those who come from the perspective that we call symbolic interaction. Okay? But what Rosenhan did was he got himself and 7 other people to go to 12 mental institutions. And these mental institutions were, some of them were kind of low class, some of them were high class. Most of them were funded in part by the state, although some were private. And these 8 individuals who actually ended up visiting 12 hospitals presented themselves at the hospitals, and these individuals were free of any kind of mental illness. They did not have any psychopathology whatsoever. Yet they presented themselves at the mental institutions and said, "Hey, I've got a problem. I'm hearing voices, and the voices are saying empty, hollow, and thud. Empty, hollow, and thud." And without exception, these individuals were admitted to the hospitals. The only thing that they changed really was their name, and in a couple of cases they changed their occupation because some of these people were actually psychologists. But other than changing their name and saying that they heard this voice that said empty, hollow, and thud, they acted just as they normally would. But yet they were all diagnosed with schizophrenia, with the exception of one who I think was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So even though these individuals were perfectly healthy, they did not suffer from any kind of mental illness. They were checked out before they went. Once they got to the hospital and said, "Hey, I'm hearing these voices," the professionals diagnosed them with schizophrenia. Once they got inside, They told staff and other people that they were okay now. They weren't hearing any voices, uh, you know, and they began to take notes. You know, when you do participant observation, you record information. And so they observed, they participated in the mental institution as patients who were diagnosed with schizophrenia, and they took notes on what they observed, and they actually had to get help to get released from the mental institutions. Nobody ever figured out that these people were not actually suffering from any type of mental illness. One of the cool things that came out of this experiment, and you can see why it's an experiment, because these people didn't have mental illness, but would professionals be able to tell that they didn't have mental illness? And in fact, they were not able to tell that. But it's interesting that some of the patients actually made the correct diagnosis and said, hey, you're not actually suffering from any type of mental illness. Rosenhan talks about the power of the label. Once a person is labeled mentally ill, others begin to view that person's behavior through the label. So taking notes became an indication of mental illness. Why are you taking notes? Well, because the truth of the matter is that I am doing a research project, and I'm participating here, observing, I'm recording information. This is actually a field experiment. And then the professional would come back and say, aha, this is further indication that this person has schizophrenia and obviously is suffering from some type of delusion. This person believes that he or she is a researcher. So one of the big lessons from this field study is that labels are incredibly powerful. Once a person is labeled mentally ill, then other people begin to view that person's behavior through the label. The other thing that this demonstrates is that mental illness is not like a lot of physical illnesses. We can give you a blood test and figure out whether you have HIV or leukemia. We can find out whether you have a bacterial infection. We can check the bacteria. There are physical exams which give us the opportunity to diagnose physical illness. But when it comes to mental illness, the diagnosis most of the time is going to be more of a subjective labeling of the individual. And clearly, we have a long ways to go to get those diagnoses to actually fit what's really going on. So, Rosenhan, famous study, the Rosenhan Study. Even though he's a psychologist, and even though he's interested in law and labeling people as sane or insane, his study is interesting for sociology because it does explore the social interaction between individuals and professional psychiatrists, professionals who deal with mental illness. And it does explore the social organization of a mental institution which provides treatment for those individuals who suffer from mental illness. It's also interesting for sociology because, he really makes use of participant observation. With participant observation, you join the organization that you want to study, you participate in that organization, and develop the same symbolic understandings that the individuals who work in that organization have. And so it's interesting from a research standpoint for sociology for that reason as well. Okay, I think that's enough about David Rosenhan. Thank you very much for your participation, and I look forward to seeing you again with some other type of wonderful educational information in the future. My name's David T. Kramer. See you next time.